We live in a world of distraction. Our phones are filled with clickbait ads, videos, and opinions flying by every second. The distraction campaign is a big one and is taking place everywhere, most notably news media. I talk a lot here about propaganda, messaging, narrative spin, and media persuasion. A recent example of a distraction campaign, in my opinion, came with this now viral clip from The Hill when Brianna Joy Gray asked author Bethany Mandel this.
You know, when we talk about traditional,
what does that mean to you? Would you mind defining woke? Because it's come up a couple times, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
So, I mean, woke is sort of the idea that this is going to be one of those moments that goes viral. I mean, woke is something that's very hard to define, and we've spent an entire chapter defining it. It is sort of the understanding that we need to totally reimagine and redo society in order to create hierarchies of oppression. It's hard to explain in a 15-second soundbite.
Yeah, look, time.
I mean, it's one of those things that everybody is weighing in, inveighing against wokeness. We do some of it on this show as well. It's definitely something, you know what it is when you see it, but
is it wrong?
Yeah. It is.
Will you define wokeness then?
I would say it's the tendency to punish people formally or often informally for expressing ideas using language specifically that is very new, that no one would have objected to like 5 seconds ago. So it's easier to come up with examples like, you know, punishing people for using the wrong pronouns or identifying structures of that kind. I would say it's the system
a lot
of
forced
actual
conformity as well.
Let's take that example. Bethany, you're talking about small children. So is the argument in your book that a 5-year-old is coming home from school not using someone's pronouns and getting castigated by their teachers or family?
Now I get it, yes. She should have been able to give a definition and should have anticipated this would be a question asked. I'll give many of the people critiquing Bethany that. But here's where it gets tricky. This conversation started and was about the education of small children and the concerns that some parents are having with some of the more seemingly ultra-woke policies. Woke is a hot term right now, being used by both sides to validate each side's opinion about the other. To me, where my gripe comes in is how so much of this is part of the constant narrative spinning by all media to move away from the substance of the issue. The issue here being children in school, children's declining mental health, adolescent girls struggling with large amounts of depression, suicidal tendencies, etc. Bri's question, whether natural or orchestrated, took away from the substance of the conversation that was being had and turned the now viral tables into a discussion on wokeness, the very thing that a lot of people are frankly concerned with and getting tired of because it's a distraction. And what I would say is interesting is that Bri's question is practically identical, as a matter of fact it is, to what Caitlin Collins of CNN asked presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy 3 days before that viral clip from Bri at The Hill. Take a look.
Well, on that front, one of the things, you've been dubbed the CEO of anti-woke. You have written several of these books. You've been very vocal of your criticism of what you say is wokeism, woke religion. Can you just define how do you define woke?
Yeah, and I'm going to define it in neutral terms, not in critical terms. Being woke refers to becoming alert to invisible societal injustices, generally based on genetically inherited characteristics like race, sex, and sexual orientation, and then being called upon to act on those injustices using whatever potential legally means are necessary, including the market, to do it. That's a neutral definition that even most proponents of wokeism in the United States would agree with. Now, my criticism of this is I think that it's inherently divisive to tell us that we're nothing more than the characteristics we inherit on the day we're born. That divides us on the basis of race and sex and sexual orientation. And then when that merges with capitalism, which is what I've actually been the biggest critic of, what it does is we lose the sanctuary, the apolitical sanctuary in our economy that otherwise brings us together, whether we're black or white, even whether we're Democrat or Republican. That's one of the underappreciated reasons why capitalism has to stay apolitical. And I'm proud to say I've been the leader on leading that fight over the course of the last couple of years, and with some progress, because I think we're turning the tide where companies are realizing that they're not doing good for themselves or even doing good for society by engaging in these fraught political and social questions.
Yeah.
And I think we're beginning to see that change of the tide.
Do you see what I see? This is mainstream media narrative spin 101 to me. It's the almost identical question. And do you see how he was able to give a definition? Of course he was able to do this. He wants to be the president, so he is rehearsing and practicing question and answer formats with likely a group of professionals that are around him every single day. Batya on the Hill, to her credit, said in a follow-up video that Bri did on this viral clip that it can be hard for people to answer questions like that on the spot that aren't normally doing that sort of thing every day. And there is also a big difference between an investigative author and researcher as opposed to someone that's been in the media limelight for years, has a law degree, worked for the Bernie Sanders campaign, has a separate podcast, worked with Ryan Grimm. Bri has a lot of practice in this area, and to her credit as well, she did say in her follow-up that it wasn't supposed to be a gotcha moment, and she acknowledged that she's had those moments too. For me, it was what happened following that initial Hill segment that irked me. Countless platforms from CNN, Breaking Point, Secular Talk, The Rational National covered the viral woke moment because it's trending, so of course it's going to get views and a lot of clicks. I'll be honest and say I didn't watch every single video from every channel I just mentioned, but it lends itself to the bigger issue I'm talking about here, which is that the substance of the issue seemed to vanish and turned into a discussion on a definition that really no one seems to say without someone else saying something different. There is no consensus on the definition right now, which is why I feel like it's more of a distraction. Again, give me a definition request, whether intentional or not, left the substance on the floor and elevated a topic of discussion that is just a hype word meant to distract. And I said as much on their comments. And I also acknowledged in a second response that I get the author should have known or been able to articulate a definition. But like I said, this still feels and looks a lot like it was a distraction. Because it worked. We're not talking about the broader issue. We should always be critical of media, even those we like, because that is what we owe the people. At least, that's what I believe journalism and media integrity to mean. What do you think? Thanks for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe, and also hit the bell and share with your friends. As always, stay safe, take care, and be kind to each other.